We've got data, so I'm happy to share it. Let's talk a little bit about this. We're starting with the BEV models. That's battery electric vehicle models represented by the green. That'll matter in a minute. But for now, we're looking at all the BEVs across all price ranges. NIO with the ET5 Touring with some sales coming into this $200,000 to $300,000 price range. That's probably with the battery swappable component and the lower pricing because of that. Otherwise, everything that NIO sells to date, at least prior to the release of Onvo, their first sub-brand, is in the higher price ranges from 300,000 RMB and above. You've got the ES6, the EC6, the ET5 Touring. So some are priced above that $300,000 threshold. The ET5, the ET7, the ES7, the ES8, and the EC7. For those who don't know, NIO has 8 models that the NIO brand puts out. Every single one of them is represented here as a top seller in China. So that's noteworthy for me as the brand and being consistent with the first major growth phase that I've identified as market awareness. The brand is still new, but it's doing okay. Baby steps to greatness is what I like to say. Here's the thing though, if we look at all passenger vehicle models through the end of September, check this out. There is so much less green showing up. And that means the majority of sales, especially in this higher end price range here, if we go back to the lower end or down to the lower end, you'll see more green showing up. But when we get into that higher priced sort of sub-segmented piece of the market, it is mostly blue, blue, blue. And a lot of it is the German brands, BMW, Audi, and Mercedes. NIO is still looking to take market share from them. I believe they will. I don't know what the time frame is, but more on that probably a little bit later. I've got some data and some shares from William Li in the latest earnings call that I wanted to kind of highlight and remind people about. But let's keep it moving because now we've got the BEV brands, retail volume rankings by price, and this is the brand itself. And if you'll note, NIO is the blue. You'll see where they're doing most of their sales. It's all from this 200,000 to 300,000 RMB and above. Again, the majority of them are coming in this highest sort of bottom half, I guess, if you want to call it that, of this data in the data set. Now with Onvo coming out, it's going to be interesting because they'll probably be showing up here. And then later Firefly is probably going to be showing up here and perhaps even here. But again, I've got something queued up, so stick around and I'll get to that in just a little bit. If we look though at the PV brands in the rankings, one thing to note, NIO is not even showing up here in the 400,000 to 500,000 RMB price range or the $200,000 to $300,000 price range. They are showing up still in the top 5. And interestingly enough, the German brands, 2 of the 3 are ahead of them there. So again, that's consistent with what we've already kind of covered. Over in the 300,000 to 400,000 RMB price range, the reason they do so well with that, I believe, is the ES6 and the ET5 sales primarily. And so those 2 models doing well in that price range. But long-term big picture, I'm just wondering because, again, NIO is leading the way across the BEV brands. And when we shifted over to the passenger vehicle brands, they dropped all the way down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 8th spot. So still a lot of the market to move over to pure battery electric vehicles or to the combinations, the NEVs. And I think with BEVs already outselling the NEVs, I just won't be surprised if when battery swappable models like these come out, from the partners that NIO has, and then with NIO coming in with more Onvo deliveries and the Firefly sub-brands even more affordably priced, I think that mainstream will eventually shift in the direction of battery swap. It's something worth noting for the long haul and long term anyway. So now let's ask the question. I've seen people musing about this, and I've seen different things. People are saying different things. My thought is I actually hope that these battery swap models are not set up to work with NIO. Although if they are, I do think there's a positive, but just hang in there because I still want to get to that. What I've got queued up, it kind of is relative to this. I went back to the original. This was back in the newsroom. Late 2023 is when this was announced, this partnership on the battery swapping between NIO and Changan. The 2 parties will jointly facilitate the formulation of standards for swappable batteries, build and share the battery swapping network, develop swappable vehicles, and establish an efficient battery asset management mechanism. Now, with that kind of that last piece, that verbiage, it kind of reminds me, it makes me think of what NIO and CATL did with the battery asset company. Some call it Marathon, the Wuhan Winning Battery Asset Company. Look, there are different names for it, but that's a combination of 4 essential partners that have a split ownership and interest in it. Now, is NIO going to do something like this with some of these other companies? Is it going to, essentially go across some of these brands? Or is it maybe going to merge and bring in some of the other partners that they have, like Southern Grid or Sinopec or PetroChina? Look, there are a lot of options. And so it's going to be fun to watch this moving forward. Now, this is from the chairman from Changan. He said the partnership between Changan and NIO on battery swap is of great importance, contributing to the high quality development of China's new energy vehicle industry. This partnership with NIO won't be limited to battery swap. We will continuously strengthen our cooperation in other platform and fundamental areas, including energy, charging and swapping, vehicle development, and ecosystem, so as to jointly promote the high quality development of the industry and build a sound, shared, and mutually beneficial ecosystem. I'm going to tell you what I think about that in just a minute and how I'm kind of looking at this big picture concept overview. But we're going to talk earnings. Now, on the note, and before I forget, earnings for NIO, they usually report after everyone else in the EV sector. And based on the cadence they've kept up recently, I'm wondering and thinking and kind of looking ahead to maybe the December 5th through December 10th timeframe. And if you just look back at when they've been reporting the last few times, you'll see that it aligns with that. Usually what we'll see is lots of folks, including Wall Street folks, speculating and being wrong on when they think the earnings are going to be. So I just wanted to lead with that. But this is from the most recent earnings. This is William Lee. And this is when he was asked about Onvo, the L60, and the ramp. This is the first sub-brand that NIO just started delivering at the end of September. And I know a lot of us are wondering what the October numbers are going to look like. Here's what he said. He said, we will start delivery from September, but not in a very significant volume. And toward the end of the year, we hope that our monthly delivery will be around 10,000 units for the month of December. Here's the key point, I think. In terms of the supply side, as the car is equipped with many new technologies, it will also take some time for the supply side to ramp up their production. That may be the thing that slows NIO ramping Onvo deliveries. That's kind of what I'm wondering. Maybe. Anyway, he had kind of given us that teaser or that data point to kind of chew on, or at least think about. Here's with respect to, because I've been thinking about this and how this is going to come together with the other sub-brand, Firefly, coming into the mix next year in 2025. And now with Onvo recently, launched and ramping, hopefully soon, with their deliveries of that sub-brand. This is what he said with respect to the factories, the operational potential and production capacity and how that looks. And so moving forward, he said, as of now, we already have 2 factories in operation. F2 or Factory 2 has already started to upgrade to double shifts to support the production of the L60. In late September or early October, the upgrade to 2 shifts will be completed, in F2. And in the meantime, we are also planning our 3rd factory. And around Q3 next year, the 3rd factory will be ready to produce the products, which means that by Q3 next year, we will have 3 factories in operations, and it will be sufficient to support our production. Now, I don't remember that he was asked specifically about Firefly in this recent earnings call. Everybody was asking about Onvo and what was going on with NIO. But I think this is a reference to, specifically the Q3, 3rd factory, halfway into 2025, that factory may be focused on Firefly. If that's the case, then I'm just wondering how that relates or perhaps ties in with something like these models. And I saw Marcel Munch's video where he was talking about he didn't think that these models were probably in alignment with NIO in their partnership yet. And I am not going to say either way. I'm going to say I hope they're not, but they might be if we end up finding out. And this is, I think, the big unknown is what the power swap station and the battery swap build out is going to look like. For example, is Firefly going to use the same power swap stations that NIO and Onvo are using? I have seen some people say both yes and no to that. And so I'll be looking for in this upcoming earnings call if we get some questions or some clarity from William Lee on that. And with that, there have also been some there are going to be some sort of adaptive learning agility type of things that NIO is going to have to figure out as they incorporate Onvo with NIO batteries, all kind of working in conjunction within the same swap stations, and as they're building those out. So I don't know what to think, except I'm watching and paying attention to things like CATL announcing not long ago that they wanted to expand their battery swap network. And I don't think any other companies have any real sales of battery swappable vehicles for the passenger vehicle side of the business other than NIO, and now Onvo, and then Firefly. And that is the reason I actually hope these aren't compatible, because that means NIO has more of a head start. But if they are compatible, that's also not a bad thing from the standpoint of shared cost in the build out of the infrastructure. And I'm just not sure what all that looks like. So with all that, I wanted to kind of throw a few different scenarios as I'm thinking about them out there and see what others are thinking as well. So here's the final point from the earnings call. And this is, I think, the mind-blowing thing, but it also validates why I said I'm hoping, like a part of me is hoping that the other brands aren't ready to come out with their battery swappable models. But if they are, that probably means faster power swap. So there's a positive either way. But NIO having a bigger edge, bigger advantage, this is kind of what it boils down to from 2025 on, I think. From next year, William Lee said, we are going to have 3 brands in the market. With that, our price range, the price range that can be covered by these 3 brands will be pretty wide. And he gives 2 different price ranges, but I'm going to go with the battery as a service price range, because this is where NIO has a huge advantage until there are other quote unquote competitors offering battery swap models. And that will come when they are sharing the system with NIO. So it actually doesn't hurt NIO. It might even help get the name and image for NIO and the sub brands that NIO will have even more, improved and highlighted. So here's the price range that he gave. RMB price range 100,000 to 700,000 RMB. That is a wide range, which will be a very strong competition to the ICE costs in the respective segments. With 3 brands with a wide price range, we will be able to reach a broader market than many of our other competitors. So again, that point that I made, and look, this is what I'm talking about is if we go back, let's just look at the big picture overview. Actually, let's go to this one. This is the one I want to look at right here. Okay, so these are the upper end price ranges where NIO has had their first 8 models selling, and they're ranking with every single one of them. Okay, and they have some sales down here in this kind of 200,000 to 300,000 price range, but they have had no products for this price range, either of these 2 price ranges, and now they're ramping this price range. So how does that shift this? That's what I'm wondering. From there's still a lot of green that can come in with BEVs to overtake more market share. And I think the battery swappable capability, the flexibility, the optionality is at some point going to make sense to so many consumers and users that NIO is going to be the kind of coveted brand, and then their partners and the sub brands are really going to benefit. But I also think, and it won't surprise me if, say, Onvo ends up bringing more buyers and more eyes to NIO, the premium brand. So anyway, that's some of what I'm thinking. This still remains a long-term play. I'll still keep tracking the short-term stuff. I think we're going to see some positive price action for NIO before the end of the year. I don't know. I'll be surprised if we see anything crazy to the upside until after the election. I think there's still some things that need to play out. And for this week, we actually have Tesla with their earnings. If they have poor earnings or they're not taken well by the market, I'll be keeping an eye on EV stocks, not just Tesla, to see if everything takes a hit. The same remains true as what I've said in the past. I think it's possible that NIO could be getting shorted in 3 different baskets. It could be getting shorted as a meme stock, which would mean when those get beaten down, perhaps suppressed, then not surprisingly, we may see the same, or algorithmic trading to the downside with NIO that I see a lot of times pre-market and when there's lower trade volume. And then, also the EV, if it's being shorted with EVs, and then also Chinese stocks. So with that piece of it, do we need to wait until after the US election when maybe there's more stimulus and maybe a lot more confidence coming around in, the Chinese market and that sort of thing. I don't know. But I talked a lot longer than I planned. So let me get this thing finished. I will make sure and get some timestamps in there. Because for those who don't know, for the 8-minute and longer videos, because there are ads put in there, I try to make it more convenient for those viewers who wish to jump around or don't want to watch the whole thing. Try and give you the topics down below. Also, it's convenient and helpful for me if I'm looking back and want to quickly reference something. So anyway, enough nerding out. Have a great day. I'll see you all again very soon.